Somebody's there. Okay. Okay. Hi, my name's Derek James, and this is Natty Mark, and we're here to speak about, well, we've got a primary issue, which is obviously what's happened with Mr. Coxon and David Rodigan, which has been quite newsworthy just recently. But before we start, I'd like to say that Morgan Heritage is going to be in Oxford on the 4th of next month, which is May.
Yes.
4th of May. I know that you've been publicising it in your magazine.
Yes, yes.
So, so Morgan Heritage, and if you want to keep up to date with what's going on in the reggae scene in Thames Valley, then Dub is the magazine. You need to get it. So it's online and physical publication, done by this man here.
Thank you very much.
So I think, for the reggae world, onwards and upwards. What I want to speak with you today, though, about Mark, because we had a bit of a discussion, and I've put an article in your magazine for this issue, which is number 2. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
And the reason why I want to speak about this issue with David Rodigan specifically is because, and it's about 4 weeks ago, I started doing a series of recordings on the future of reggae. So I've done 1 and 2. And the idea is obviously to put them online. And number 3, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do exactly. I had a conversation with Gary, because Gary Constant owns Ockard Rhythm. This is the track that he's putting out soon. But so I had a conversation with him, and we did a little 10-minute, and it was before the Rodigan thing blew up, and we gave a shout out to David Rodigan because of his book that was launched. And we were just talking, and we went into a kind of like a reminisce about in the day when he used to sell records at Oxford Stadium, the Greyhound track. And we just went over a bit of a time period, because obviously Oxford is where he actually started. So there's a whole bunch of us from this part of the planet who know him from when he started. And so we've got this thing for Rodigan in the sense of we know him, and he comes down here and does a gig now and again and that kind of thing. So when the Coxon and Rodigan thing blew up or started, I'm going, okay, that means I can now do my issue 3 of the future of reggae, but it starts with the Coxon tirade, aimed at David Rodigan. Because I think that there were 4 things. Because I know that in the next issue of Dub, you're actually doing an article on it, or doing a piece. Yeah. And there was the things that Coxon said and the way that he said them, which I want to sift out and make a distinction between some of the things he said and the way that he said them, and the issues he brought up about reggae and its problems. Okay. And I want to make a distinction between the two. But with David Rodigan, he issued a statement about the issue, and this is the statement. You can go online and you can read it for yourself. So I'm not going to quote from it, but basically what David wants to do is he wants to draw a line under the issue. So the idea is that any future conversations that we're going to have with regards to the future of reggae takes from some of the ideas that what Coxon was talking about, but I'm not talking about the Rodigan versus Coxon issue, because for all I know, David Rodigan and Lloydie Coxon may have had a meeting last night, and they may be best friends. So the point I'm making is that I'm not adding fuel to that issue, that as far as David Rodigan is concerned, in this article, in this statement, he's drawn a line under the issue. He just says, I'm not getting involved in any of this anymore. That's the end of that. Let's just get on with the music. Wow. I know there's a lot of people that when I said I want to do something on the future of reggae, Coxon, and they said, no, don't do that. Too hot. Don't do anything where I'm going to be, maybe seen as, being in sides and all of those kind of things. And this is not a sides issue. And as I said, with David Rodigan drawing, because if I saw Rodigan tomorrow and he saw me with my camera, he'd go, hey Derek, what you up to? What's going on? So so I'm not getting involved in that conversation. There's a reason why people shouldn't be looking to get involved with that conversation. I actually think that Coxon himself may be worth couple of million, but he doesn't know it because of the intellectual property that he owns. And I'm going to be speaking about that because there were issues that Coxon brought up, which, wow, I mean, first things first, I want to deal with the race side, right? Or what some people were perceiving to be race, because there are a couple of people who made comments online, did videos, and I thought interesting, but I don't believe that they were answering the question. I think they were adding more fuel to the fire. And I'm not going to speak about who those people were, but there's lots of stuff online, so you can then go and view that stuff for yourself. Wow. Again, it's not that I'm hesitant. What it is, it was like throwing a bomb in the middle of the room and just going bam. And I'm going, where did that come from? Okay. I'm going to bring up a couple of films, but in the 3 videos that I've done, well, this is video 3. In the 2 videos that I've already done, I've spoken about the history of the future of reggae from the point of view of the business, the business of reggae, not whose culture is pushing who, not who's appropriating whose culture, not he shouldn't be involved because none of that. I'm talking about the business, right? Denzel Washington made a statement ages ago, because obviously Hollywood's got a lot of issues. They've been dealing with issues for years, but they're the most seasoned at dealing with race issues, right? In terms of white guys giving their money to produce films, them working with white directors and producers and all that kind of stuff. So they have been down a road and have dealt with issues. And one of the recent issues 2 years ago was Oscars So White, where Jada Pinkett was basically doing this, because Jada is the more militant between, we all know Will Smith is very kind of like mild-mannered and easy to get on. Jada, she's got mouth on her, when she's ready to talk, she'll talk. And, they had this kind of like Oscars Too White thing going on. But what we have to understand is that the Oscars, if they are too white, it's a majority white people's thing. I'm not talking about whether it's good, bad, right, or wrong. That's not what I'm saying. And so the protests that have been made by blacks about the Oscars is coming from a premise of, why aren't we represented in the Oscars? But with the awards ceremonies that Lloyd Coxon is talking about, they're run by black people. So the issue there in terms of who owns the awards, the power issues, that is an award that is run by blacks. And so if they're not awarding blacks, then the issue there is not with David Rodigan, it's with the awards people. And there's a difference between being awarded something and being recognised. I don't need someone to recognise me if I know what I'm doing is good. But with an award, you're hoping that someone else recognises you. And the problem with that's almost like, Oliver, please sir, can I have some more? You're always waiting for them to give you. And there's a guy by the name of Norman Granz, white guy. He was the one that put all of the big black jazz musicians in the world on a big stage in the 1940s. He was kind of like the Berry Gordy of jazz. And he did that. And
Carnegie Hall, wasn't it?
Right.
He had him playing.
Jedi. And the reason why I'm bringing, say, Norman Granz up as a white guy, and this film here, 42, which I think every black person should look at, is because it's the story of Jackie Robinson and how he broke the colour bar in American baseball, which then led for all of the other sports to have black participation in the sports. But the point is, it's a white guy who owned the team, who put his team's future on the line and got his managers to comply to a new way of behaviour that they were fighting against. The entire team, the entire baseball team was saying, we don't want this nigger here, right? So the idea that we can do it on our own for our music, when it was a Chris Blackwell who gave Bob Marley a whole bunch of money, and it was Richard Branson with the Frontline albums, Virgin, who put a lot of money into those albums, did it. And the problem that I have with the reggae world is really this, in a nutshell. Whether you look at Branson or Chris Blackwell, both white, who put money into reggae in those early, late 70s and early 80s, was that they put money into the business of reggae. Whereas the stuff that is coming from Jamaica today is not in the business of reggae. And the reason why I say that is because if you want to get royalties, 10 years ago they were sampling all the reggae tunes to put in jungle tracks, drum and bass. But in terms of people receiving their residuals, because none of the artists are joined to any of the agencies that collect your royalties, there's no money, right? So one of the issues that Lloyd brought up was that the music industry in Jamaica is dying. But the reason why it's dying is because they're not in the business of reggae. They're merchandising tracks. And what I mean by that is you pay a guy $500, voice a track, and then how much the studio makes is up to the studio. There's nothing wrong with that business model, but it can't deal with the world that is with us today.
I mean, going back to this, I mean, I don't know about the white figure.
Yeah.
But all I know is that the black press were the mainstay of that campaign to break down the newspapers like the Chicago Defender, the Pittsburgh Courier. I don't really know about this figure, but I know that the black press at that time were instrumental in having that desegregation and bringing Jackie Robinson.
Again, I'm not saying no, because
And don't forget, I mean, he was a member of the Black Panthers. I mean, when we think of the Black Panthers, we tend to think of the big cat, or we think of the militant organisation in the 60s.
Yeah.
But the Black Panther was actually a tank division of black soldiers who fought in various parts.
He's a soldier. He's a soldier.
Right, and he was an official in that.
Yeah.
He actually went for officer training. But what happened? He got on a bus one day and he was asked to sit in another part of the bus, and he refused.
Yes.
And because he was in the army, he got court-martialed, blah,
Yeah.
blah. So that's why he never actually saw action. So there was all that history leading up, but it was newspapers like the Chicago Defender, the Pittsburgh Courier, the New York Amsterdam News, the Baltimore African American. These were the main tools in having that reversal in the team makeup.
Cool. Now the reason why Natty can speak about black press is because you actually teach in Oxford, and you teach black journalism and the history of black journalism.
Yes.
So in terms of your knowledge base around the history of black journalism, there are things that you will bring up that, and I think that what is interesting about the Coxon and David Rodigan thing is that you're hearing Coxon speak from a perspective. How he carried himself when he was speaking from his perspective is what some people have an issue with, because there were issues about David Rodigan and his colour that were brought up. But my issue is that when you look at, say, this is how I would describe David Rodigan. Having known of him for years, there's a whole bunch of people down here that know David Rodigan. It's not like it's magic, and he comes from this part of the world, right? But what I'm saying is this: you had a white guy who physically owned the football, the baseball team. He owned it. It was his business. His story, his story was that when he was younger, he saw a black guy being kicked around, so to speak, not given a chance in the world of baseball, and now that he was an older man that owned a team, he said, I can change this. And so he put his team on the line, and he was the first guy to do it.
That sounds so much like the story with Chris Blackwell and his connection, because how it happened with him, because do you remember at that time middle class Jamaica thought reggae was something else, and Rasta was What happened? He was out one day, and I think he got dehydrated, and he fainted, collapsed. A group of Rasta fishermen took him in and looked after him, and through that he kind of changed his personal
perspective.
perception.
Yes.
So that was the way he was able to kind of give Rasta a chance.
Yes.
So when the Wailers walked in that day, he was a bit more receptive.
He was primed
than the average white Jamaican.
Yes, he was primed.
Yeah.
And it's those type. What it is now, I look at David in exactly the same way. In that, and I use this example in the other recording that I've done, but I need to bring up the context. This is a film. It's called Belle. If you're American, then you will have seen this pumped like you wouldn't believe by Oprah Winfrey, because, whoops, I'll leave that on the floor. Right. The film was, it's a British film. It's made, the director is a British black woman. The main actress is a British black woman. The ensemble cast behind it is all British whites, but it's a period story basically about a woman who was born to a black mother and a white father who was English gentry. She basically had the inheritance to a castle over here, but she couldn't claim her inheritance because of her colour. She couldn't claim her place in society because of her colour. But the point is that Oprah Winfrey saw the film, liked it, took it on her network and pushed it like you wouldn't believe, and gave it the type of press that no industry or no section of the industry was really giving it. So, and what you see with David Rodigan, his position and his platform isn't as big as Oprah's, but he was doing exactly the same thing with what he does with reggae. So David Rodigan's not trying to be a producer. He's not trying to be a whatever. And the point that I'm making is so that we can now move into the industry side, is that David Rodigan as a DJ who started off selling records locally, and he's not ashamed of that. So it's not. There's no revelation. There's no big story about that. But David Rodigan, who started off as a guy who sold records, where most of the guys around here who own sound system would go and buy a whole bunch of records from David because it was easier than going to London. Right. Now, with that said, in moving into the business side, which were the areas that Coxon was talking about. And you can get a link to this because I'll give you a link so that you can put it on your magazine link, okay. Right? My name was mentioned in Music Week in 2005. Music Week, biggest music industry Bible in the UK, regular weekly publication about what's going on. We were involved with anti-piracy back then, and so I'm reiterating the story that I told you earlier on. We were involved with anti-piracy technology because the industry of music was losing millions. I mean, it was just insane. It was online. Everybody was downloading tracks. And we have to understand that in this downloading tracks, Tower Records in America went bust. We've seen HMV in England almost go bust in the sense of there's hardly any stores. EMI, the record label, biggest label, launched the Beatles, the Coldplay, Spice Girls, has gone bust in 2011. And so we were involved with the technologies behind the scenes where we were telling people, listen, this will slow down how you are losing money. It's not going to cure your problems, but it will slow it down, because what the industry needed was a breather so that it could then start creating new business models and new ways of doing business. And everybody back then was just afraid, literally, that there was going to be no more music business, because if people ain't buying your plastic and ain't buying your CDs, it's like, how do we make money now? Prince, who has obviously just recently died, in England, one of his albums only sold 8,000 copies. Now, as an independent, this will sell 8,000 and it's not got anybody famous in it. So if Prince is selling only 8,000 records and his American sales are having to subsidize what is taking place in England, the business has changed. Something's wrong, okay? So when you hear Coxon say all of the pressing plants have closed, he's saying all of the record shops have closed, the reason why Jamaica can't stand that typhoon of change is because it's a smaller country. Now, if we've got big record labels in England going bust, big distribution companies in England going bust, and Prince only selling 8,000, he's a multi-million album selling artist. Millions to 8,000, something's wrong. And so what Coxon is speaking about is not the problem of David Rodigan. That's an industry-wide issue. And so the business model that Jamaica had, where in the 1970s, 1980s, they could sell, say, 90,000 copies of a 45, 7-inch, 90,000 copies of an album, and you were doing a work for hire mechanism, and I'll explain what that is in a moment. You were making a bunch of money. Now, so that people understand what work for hire is, everybody knows Spider-Man, everybody knows the Fantastic Four, everybody knows, give me another Marvel comic, Wolverine, right? Stan Lee, the guy who created all of those stories, Spider-Man and all of that, he makes no money from those, even those are multi-billion-dollar franchises, because he did the stories as comic books and he got paid per hour for how much he did. Once he created Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four and Wolverine and all of those, that as film franchises are making billions today, he has no stake. So he does a cameo in every movie, but he doesn't make a penny in royalties from any of those. So Stan Lee is so he's the complete opposite to J.K. Rowling, who did Harry Potter, where she wrote a book, she has royalties, and she's literally made $1 billion off of Harry Potter and its merchandising. So you've got two writers. Both have done famous titles. In fact, Stan Lee's catalogue of characters, I mean, I think there's over 500, 1,500 characters from that whole Marvel universe, because he's 97 now. So he's been around since all like the 1940s, doing all of those. But what I'm saying is that as an older man who has been in the industry of comic books that then got turned into cartoons, because we used to look at Saturday morning cartoons, he never got a penny from any of those other uses of his properties because he was a work for hire creative. The Jamaican artists are part of the work for hire industry in exactly the same way as Stan Lee is. So if your track goes on and makes a whole bunch of money, in other words, so the Jamaican labels that were printing 90,000 copies of something, if you got your $500 for doing the studio time, you sang the song, that was it. And so the reason why you don't see a lot of rich Jamaican artists is because they're in the Stan Lee business. They're hired in the same way.
And that's sad, that they should be struggling.
Yes.
They gave us so much sweet music.
Yeah.
And, it is sad, really, that some of them elders are struggling.
But that's why let's just say the next generation, which is the now generation, right? What I do now, I said in 2004, I said the 2005, the link to the magazine that my name was mentioned with a bunch of other people, people that got names, right? My name was linked to, this is what we're doing, anti-piracy technology, slowing down the rate of the money being lost. We went to Palmer's. Palmer's is Jetstar, who's the biggest reggae distributor, in England. Both Richard and Ron went to Jetstar, and they said, "Derek, are you coming?" I goes, "No, I'm not going." And they said, "Why not?" And I goes, "Palmer's not built that way. He's not going to invest in this stuff to protect the music that he's selling." They goes, "Yeah, of course he will." I goes, "No, he won't." Because the mindset is the work for hire business, and that's why now Jetstar doesn't exist. He sold the catalogue because it's a different business now, right? And I wrote a book 4 years ago called The Direct Fan Base Revolution that spoke about how
respect.
All right. Right.
God bless.
Right. So I wrote a book 4 years ago that spoke about how there's $1 trillion a year that is rewiring the world. You ain't changing. That's a tidal wave. $1 trillion a year is money. But I said that in this $1 trillion a year, artists will be able to get in contact with up to 1 billion fans, because there's the stuff that's stealing the music, but then the compensation that is swung in the other way is the way in which you can get. Now there's a band called Fifth Harmony, an American pop band. They have had 1 billion views of 2 of their singles. So where we are now is in the 1 billion views and rising season.
For sure, as far as exposure goes.
Right. But what you still have is Jamaican labels not getting involved in the new way of doing things. Now, I'm not saying anything's wrong with the old way, right? I'm doing this album with Gary. There's some good tracks on this in terms of reggae. And there's some stuff that I'm doing with it because, there's a play that has just been. The play was 2 months ago. Newton's play, Black Lives Matter. When you go into the theatre, all of the soundtracks are all 60s and 70s R&B tracks, kind of struggle tracks. And I've put an idea to Newton with regards to using some reggae stuff for some of the virtual reality experiences that I'm creating for the play. And with one of the tracks, which you were just doing some of the drumming for, what I'm doing is I'm doing stuff where people will see the Ku Klux Klan, see what it's like, why it is that the Ku Klux Klan think in a certain way, the doctrine of the Ku Klux Klan, and there's a bunch of stuff in there that's scary, right? But what I'm saying is that as a virtual reality experience where there are 1 billion people that have signed up to be involved with one virtual reality platform, and in China there are 550 million smartphones that are VR compatible. The idea that you're not making product for these new platforms is insane, right? And what Coxon was saying when he talked about the 500 sound systems that bigged up reggae, that's interesting, but we have to understand something with the 500 sound systems. A sound system is not going to get to 1 billion people, right? I'm talking about where we are now because it's the future of reggae, right? So Coxon was speaking about all of the pressing plants have died, but the pressing plants have died for England. We was at a pressing plant 2 weeks ago for this.
It can in a way, because you can go online and you can catch a Channel 1 at Carnival or at some session in France. So there is that, what you might call upgraded access.
I understand what you're saying.
Whereas before we might have heard of a sound system. Now we can actually go on
online,
YouTube and get a look.
Right. But what I'm saying is this. Please understand what I'm saying. I'm talking about when I say
we're talking about the wider exposure, and I haven't embraced.
There you go. Because what the things that Coxon was talking about, I believe, are things that won't be revived in this sense. As I said, this is a vinyl album, right? And this is the second. Because I've done near enough all of Gary's label artwork. Because I mean, for me, it's a hobby. It's like what's going on in the reggae world. It keeps my ears in with what's going on, right? And when Gary told me about this, I'm going, okay, can I make a cover that I think? Now I haven't hit. I think Frontline, the album with the hand, the blood and the barbed wire. Okay. I think that's a definitive reggae cover. So I haven't come up with a definitive reggae cover yet. But in terms of like the VR stuff that I'm working on for the future of reggae, it's kind of like. And the people that we're looking to get involved with the project as a VR experience is going to be insane, right? But the point that I'm making here is this, is that with the demise of, like, in England, Pinnacle Distribution was one of the biggest record distribution companies in England. Now, I mean, they would do across the board, but you see rock guys can't sell any music. So, you know, you see entire scenes, subcultures can't sell the music. So the things that Coxon is talking about that have happened to reggae, and Jamaican reggae specifically, and then he spoke about the rise of European reggae, which is another issue. We'll bring that up in a moment. All of those changes with the close. I mean, you just walk down High Street, there's no more HMV. Most cities in England, there's no more HMV. It can't stay afloat. It doesn't work. America, the entire chain of Tower Records, been around for years, dead, right? So all of those things that Coxon was talking about, and he said about, all of the musicians idle. It's not going to revive unless, now this is when I said about the difference between, say, Stan Lee, the comic book writer, and J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling was hooked up with some good agents who tied her into royalty-based residuals so she can go on and do other things. From the business side, I'm not talking about whether I like reggae or not.
But I think the guy with the artist from the Marvel comics, what's his name? What's his name?
Stan Lee.
Stan Lee.
Yeah.
Okay. He knew that he was getting paid an hourly rate.
Yeah.
Okay. I think a lot of them producers played on the naivety of them singers, because them guys just wanted to sing first of all.
Yes.
The business side of it, they weren't aware of it.
I agree with that.
Do you know what I mean? So kind of them producers really.
Uh-huh.
Although they were the channels.
Yes.
For this music to come through.
Yeah.
They played on the naivety of them guys and ripped them off. It's.
But again, but what you're now doing is, and you can continue with this because I'm going to be in agreement with you. What you're now doing is you are actually saying that there are Jamaican producers, or producers, just however you want to put it, right, who were complicit in not helping artists. But again, I need to kind of, because again, I don't want to go down what it is that what Coxon brought up was he's the first man I've actually heard say reggae's in trouble. He's the first man I've heard say that all of this music that's coming out for reggae now is predominantly in Europe. But the reason why it can come out of Europe is because, like, if I decided to get involved with doing an independent track in a scene, and I wanted to sell, say, 500, 1,000, 2,000, I know that I could do it because I know that the market is there to do that. In Jamaica, however, which is 2.7 million people in terms of its population, if you produce a track, 500, and most of the people are pirating, and you can go to Brixton Market today, and you'll see 5 CD compilations for £5, which some guys copied on his computer, Lovers Rock, old school, any genre, and you can buy a CD, and it's a pirate CD. And what you have are people who are buying the music and it's not a question of not realizing. The reason why I wouldn't try and educate people, right? Here's another link that you're going to have on your website. There is a map that I'm going to give you. It's the Piracy Map of the UK. Now every country has one, but they know where the music is being downloaded for free, who is pirating and whatever. But what you can't do is go around people's houses like the Gestapo, because the record industry tried to do that at first, and say, give me money, you're pirating our tracks. And the reason why the artists weren't getting involved with any of that is because they didn't want the record labels basically alienating them from their fans. So the good thing that the record industry has is that it has seen what the big labels have tried to do with piracy. So there's a piracy map. You can see who's doing all where it's all happening in terms of populations. But what I'm saying is this, from a business point of view, you cannot. This is being sold as a nostalgia thing. Someone that's got a vinyl record player at home.
But this has actually got musicians playing on this, isn't it? It's not.
Yeah, it's not, musicians, but
they're not singing over a computer, are they?
Right, it's not that. Again,
which is quite rare. It is
rare. Gary's gone all over the world and got different people to do. You know, he's got people from Cuba, got people from France. They're the musicians. But again, I don't want to get into, because there's some house music that I like that is definitely not musicians. It's just knobs and squeaks. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that from the business point of view, and that's why I'm trying to, you know, it's not, I love Alton Ellis, I love Channel 1, I love Joe Gibbs, I like, you know, Mickey Campbell when he was alive, Jojo Hookim and all of that stuff that we can then, you know, Sata Masagana and all those tracks that we can look at with some kind of fondness. But from a business point of view, the model that supported those tracks becoming what they are that we know now doesn't exist. So you can't push a model that doesn't exist.
Well, that's good anyway, because it was rip-off city, wasn't it? So I'm glad that doesn't. I mean, that had to go.
Okay. Well, what I'd say is this.
I mean, kind of.
Yeah.
It's a shame that kind of there isn't something else there.
Well, I think,
you know, they kind of. I mean, there is a potential for it.
Yeah. Well.
But that kind of mass use of it, because he decried the studios that aren't there anymore.
Yes.
You know, because people are doing things
right
digitally.
Yes.
So the musicians are still there, isn't it?
Yeah.
But for the producer,
yeah.
I mean, he's looking to limit his costs, isn't he?
Well, the model that support. Look, if I owned a reggae label back in the 1970s, and I wasn't old enough to be even thinking like, you know what I mean, right? But if I owned a label back in the 1970s that was selling 90,000 copies of every 7-inch I was putting out and every single album, I would be, I mean, big man, big house, big cigar, you know? Because those types of, and that's why the major labels moved in, because in terms of a good sales volume for really inexpensive costs, right? To get a master tape, right? The model was brilliant again back then, but you're talking about that's 40 something years ago. So where we are now, it's a different time, and what it is, as I said, you have got, and I'm going to go out of reggae because I have to. You've got people like all of them, Mariah Carey. No, I'll go even one better. There's a new music award called the Lion Entertainment Industry Award. Sounds almost reggae-ish. What it is, it's an award that's come out of Cannes, and what the major labels are now celebrating isn't so much the artist's music. It's nuanced. What they're celebrating is the way in which the artist engages with their fans, the type of campaigns they're putting on, and so on. So it's not about singing in the sense of, yeah, he's a good singer, I like the singing, but what it is what is it that the artist is doing to engage the fans to get all of these followings? Because now I can bring up two artists. Shakira has got over 105 million social media fans. So if we were looking at a country in terms of population size, that's 1/3 of America. Rihanna and Lady Gaga, they're close into the 100 millions. Now, if you can get in contact with 100 million people on a mobile phone, which is what they can do, right? You can sell out, which is what they are doing, global tours in 2 hours, right? So the model that you want to be looking at is that, right? And that now, the moment that you are looking at that as the model, because you've seen what other people have achieved, there ain't no place for rip-off producers, rip-off managers. Because
but you have to ask if there's the infrastructure in Jamaica that can support that.
The infrastructure, I mean, well, since you brought out, now, this is what I'm teaching in Oxford, because I've been asked to do this. I'm doing a workshop called the Hidden Careers Workshop, and it's basically how people, it's across industries, but I'm doing a media section, and if you live in Oxford, you can get on this course for free, because it's being paid for by the college, right? It's a hidden careers, and it's how you get to meet the people that are going to give you the type of careers that you want, irrespective of the section. But I'm doing something on the music and film business, and what I'm doing for people that live outside of Oxford, because if you live in Oxford, you can get it for free. If you live outside of Oxford, then there's going to be a small charge. So I believe that I'm going to be having people from all over England, as well as America, Jamaica, people from Nashville and all that, come in here, because what it is there is a disconnect between the way in which the industry of yesterday worked, which is the industry that Coxon was talking about. It doesn't matter what's, and the industry of today. And the reason why I was saying about even country and western, which is what we were talking about the other day, the amount of West Indian islands that like country and western. Country and western has done a good, since Jim Reeves and all of those, right? Our parents, yeah. Have done a good job of infiltrating the West Indies. I don't mean infiltrating in a bad way. They've marketed their music, and there's an entire generation of people who have got in their record collection a whole bunch of country and western. Now imagine if you had country artists.
Because you think back in the day when they were tuning in and getting stations from New Orleans, so they were getting a Fats Domino and all that kind of rhythm and blues, but they could also get the Nashville stations.
There you go.
So they would listen to Slim Whitman,
there you
Jim
go.
Reeves, and
okay.
So that's why when you look through a collection of vinyl from someone of our parents' generation, there's always a Jim Reeves or Slim Whitman in there, wasn't it?
Right. So you take that same idea now and you translate that to any genre where you have got someone who's trying to do a campaign to reach a market. I would imagine there are a lot of people from Nashville who would never have thought, we're going to go and do something in the West Indies. But the amount of West Indians that love country, as I said, our parents' generation, is insane, right? And every black person knows that. So the point that I'm making here is that if you can bring people in line with the way in which things are done today, then the problems of the industry of the past will disappear. But I actually think that this is it's not that it's better, it's just that it's different. And it's not that it's better, it's just different.
This is one thing that kind of stood out for me about the thing with Coxon and Rodigan, when he said that all these great musicians are sitting in Jamaica Idol.
Yes. But
that shouldn't be.
You're right, it shouldn't be, but again, you have to understand, right, I'm on when I say the business side, because I know a whole bunch of people that as musicians, I'm going, because it's, right, I believe I can say this without any flinching. I'm a creative and I'm good at what I do, right? So I can do animations. I've put together a series. It's called the Skullhead Squad. Now, what it is basically a bunch of dead people, but they're all musicians. So you got the country person, you got the Rasta, you got the punk, you got the rocker. All of these guys, they talk and whatever, and they're all walking dead. But they're walking around like they still got some juice. No, you haven't. Everything that they're doing is just on Death Valley. But so I've got these skeletons that do their talk about the industry, and they're talking about the way things were, and it used to be like this, but it's like that way of doing things is dead. And again, so if you look at the Skullhead Squad as a kind of, if you're in Britain, then you know what Spitting Image is, right? Where it was just satire, it was just take the mick, right? So you've got these dead talking skeletons who are talking one way, but at the other extreme, you've got, as I said, Shakira and all of those artists with 60, 70, 80 million fans. Now here's the real problem. So that everybody really gets it into context. MTV is 36 years old, launched in 1981, right? And what's been happening in record labels since 1981, because they said, wow, TV stations opened up to sell our music, because all you have to do is just get a video onto MTV, and then MTV does all the promotion. But what's been happening since MTV there's been a decline in MTV viewing figures over the last 35 years, to the point where now MTV only shows 20% music videos, the rest of the time is reality shows and wrestling and whatever. But in that time, the staff in record labels, so that's 35 years, have not been needed who could promote a band, promote an artist, because MTV did all the work. So what you've got is a bunch of office administrators in record labels. not people that know how to promote a dance, build a band's career from the ground up, and make things happen. So the problems that you see with the record industry that Coxon spoke about actually exist across all labels, where things ain't working, and you've got a lot of people that aren't tooled up, who don't know how to put on a gig and get people there. So the reason why the internet age is good is because if you build your fan base, listen to what I'm saying here, just so that we can finish the point. If you build your fan base and you know how to do that, then you're in a position like Gaga, like Rihanna, like Shakira, where you can outreach to the people that like what you're doing. And that's a whole different way of doing things, a different model. And I said, like, what I'm doing with the course, like there's a guy, it's a white guy, I met him, I filmed him 2 and a bit weeks ago. No, it's about a month ago. He has got 80,000 followers on YouTube, right? He's a local artist. So I'm getting him to talk to people about how you get fan bases together, because he was doing something. There's another girl who I'm going to be getting to do stuff with regards to social media. And the reason why I brought up the Lion Entertainment Industry Awards is because every single category that the Lion Entertainment Industry Awards gives you a credit for, you know, in terms of, so it's not a Grammy, right? It's about what the artist does. They already know what artists need to do to get online followings. But what most artists want to focus on is singing and recording. That's their brain. Their brain is singing and recording, right? Nothing wrong with that. And that was good 20 years ago, but it's no good now. Does that make sense? If you want, from a business point of view, if you want me, let me know. I need, because I know you're going to go do something, right? If you, Denzel said, don't talk about us being oppressed and whatever, because you talk about the black issue. He goes, if a studio executive lends me $50 million, he wants his money back. He goes, Hollywood ain't about black and white so much. He goes, there is some issues, nepotism, whatever. He goes, Hollywood's about green. Now, if you've got a black artist, irrespective of their genre, if you've got a country artist, irrespective of their genre, if I'm going to give you some money to make an album, I want to know that the money's going to come back. So when Gary comes to me and says, Derek, I need a cover for my album, I'm saying, right, Gary, I know what you need. You need something that when people walk into the store, they're going to go, bam! You know what I mean? So there's 10, 12 covers on the display. This has to be one, and I believe that, you know, when you see the proper one, it's done its job. They're going to look and go, what's that?
No, for sure. Definitely,
right.
Definitely.
So what I'm saying is, so from a visual point of view, you give me a brief, I know what I'm doing. Now, when I wrote my book 5 years ago, I was like, you know, people saying, yeah, right? And I know one guy who's a multi-million selling producer, and I said to him years ago, and he goes, that's not the way the industry's going. And he didn't want to listen to any of this. Just checking that. Yeah, right, cool. He didn't want to listen to any of this because it's not the way he thought. What he thought was, I'm going to make my music, I'm going to get the singer in who looks pretty, and then I'm going to give that to the record label. So what I'm saying is that the producer is at fault in that situation, because his thing is the music and a good-looking singer. That don't work anymore. That's not the formula. As I said, the Lion Entertainment Industry Awards, brilliant, because what they have done 2 years ago, because it's now going to be in its third year, is they've looked at the parameters that make social media work for artists. They already know that's what they're awarding. And now what they're saying, and the reason why I believe that the music industry is now going big on those Lion Awards, is because what they're saying is we need people that kind of get it. Now, once you get people that get it, the new artists who will be ruling the roost and having fan base of 50 million people, so that Live Nation can set out 50 city tours just like that. And it doesn't matter whether you are the guy that I know who sold multi-million albums, you're Coxon or whatever. The industry has changed. It's a new way of doing things. Now, in that local newspaper that we have got that came out last week, they have got an article, front page spread, and it says driverless cars. So we have got driverless cars going around, driverless buses going around in Oxford that they're testing. Now you can either be the Flintstones or the Jetsons, right? You make a choice. Or you can be in the horse and car era, or you can be in the combustion engine era. The man who's still going with his horse and car, it works, but you want to try and get from here to Miami in 4 hours, and then you need to go on a plane, right? Or, you know, the canoe will take you however long. The point is that it's a new way of doing things. And the reason why a whole bunch of people left a lot of major labels in the early days of piracy is because they saw the writing was on the wall, and they knew that whatever was turning up wasn't them. It kind of didn't fit them. And so when the power play in record labels used to be, yeah, if you want a record deal, you've got to go through me. I don't care who you are, right? I can go to someone, I can say, music video cost is 70 grand, okay? Give me that music video budget. Let me back it with a VR thing, a few other, and an online person, and we can start creating a fan base for this artist, right? So we've taken this, we can take the same money that a record company would spend and gamble, and give them a package that we know will work because we're controlling the growth of the package. But you have to have a mind to be able to do that. So in using this
or have someone in your corner that you trust completely,
who can do that. They have to be able to produce the results. It's not talk.
Yeah.
No,
no, for sure.
Do you see what I mean?
For
so
sure.
if you right,
No, I mean,
yeah.
No, I'm just saying because we've had examples over the years. Probably Marcus Garvey is probably the greatest example where the Black Star Liner was a great idea, but the actual staff that he picked to run it,
idiots.
A brilliant idea which could have done so much, but he brought incompetence aboard.
Yes, and that's why the Titanic floated. The reason why the Titanic sunk was because it was a big idea. All the contractors were going to get money, but everybody said, wow, if I can scrape and use cheaper materials, cheaper metal, cheaper rivets, cheaper that. And so the Titanic was a house of straw waiting for something to just knock it and it would fall over. So the point that is being made here is that even the record deals that people should assign in now, I would sign them on a proviso that the person who is the manager knows what they're doing or will be paid on a results basis. Because why in the world would I sign a record contract to a manager who don't know how to do social media and a designer? Because if all he's doing is shipping everything out, he's shipping everything out to people who are basically creating a Titanic. You're hoping that it's going to float, but as soon as it hits the wrong situation, it don't work. So today's business model is about finding the people with the competencies who can do what you need have done. So what I'm saying is, so your manager should be someone. There's a guy by the name of Jay Samet. He is the guy that launched Justin Timberlake's solo career. He doesn't work in the music industry anymore. He used to work with EMI and some of the big labels. He's now gone off and he's now doing another technology company. But the point is, he was the one that put together the massive campaign that launched Justin Timberlake. When Prince broke away from his record deal and he had Slave written across his face for a while, the idea that Prince came up with was this: he'll keep his American deal, get back the rights for his European sales. He then gave the rights to his music to a British newspaper, who then distributed 2-something million of his album. And then he then sold out 21 days back to back at the O2 Arena in America, in London. He made a killing. But what I'm saying there is that Prince created his own business model, right? So the 8,000 sales that he was doing, which was not making him any money, he looked at it and said, no, we need to redesign what we're doing so that it works for me. He cut out the record label in part of the issue, but kept them in America. The point that I'm making here is that you need people who know how to look at the lie of the land and say, right, okay, this is what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, and will accomplish the end game. So once upon a time, the business model was simple.
No, for sure.
Whether you're selling records, hard-dough bread, or toilet rolls, you just manufacture them and give them to the distribution company. No thought required. Now you need someone who understands how to be a general and say, right, okay, sniper there, sniper there, sniper there. Right, get me 4,000 fans through this method, 12,000 fans through this method, 20,000 fans through this method. Now we need to go and get 1 million people over here. This is what we're doing. You need someone who's going to think like a general and know how to bring in the numbers. Because in the days of MTV did that. All you had to do was get a music video, get it online, get it on MTV, and then that brought in the fans. That was the Pied Piper method. You play some on MTV now, and all that happens is people just know where to go and, oh, that's a song I like, I'm going to go and pirate it. There you go. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I think that, in some sort of like bringing this one to an end, what Coxon was saying with regards to the industry is in problems, the Jamaican industry is in problems, the artists are idle, or the musicians are idle, the shops are closed, the manufacturing plants have closed. That's happened all over the world. But the issue isn't blaming one person for the demise of the music industry. And I said, like, with regards to the awards, go on.
I mean, a part of it, I think he's I think he's just upset to see the kind of, because he must be aware of that this is happening in other genres of music, it's not just reggae, but I think he himself is personally
vested,
upset.
Yeah.
That kind of, there's no real kind of, how can I say, appreciation or widespread appreciation in Jamaica of that heritage. You know, all that beautiful music that was made, all the great musicians.
But again, that's
the kind of, there's.
I hear you, but
because, I mean, for instance, how often do you hear Roots on a Jamaican radio?
But again, yeah, I know, but I hear you. But that's not the issue. The issue is,
well,
it's happening across all genres.
But someone who's had so much of an involvement in Roots reggae,
yeah,
he feels it, you know. And even though he was resident here for many years, you know, he was born and grown up there, so he feels it, you know, that there isn't that kind of real, you know, I mean, you go to other countries, I mean, for instance, you go to some parts of Europe, Germany and such places, Austria.
Yeah.
Every year, they will have concerts of Beethoven and Mozart and...
yeah.
How come in Jamaica there isn't that regular appreciation? There's
right.
Kind of, you know,
okay.
there isn't that deep appreciation and awareness of the struggle.
Right, and I hear you. I understand what you're saying, but I think it means nothing in this sense. Well, I'm not being disrespectful to you. What I'm trying to say is this: is that
I'm trying to see something from where Coxon was coming from, and some of that anger. Because it was unfortunate, because both him and Rodigan have made their contribution in whatever manner.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, Lloyd Coxon has made a larger contribution and a more widespread contribution, but still, they've made their contributions. I'm just trying to see some of that anger and trying to see the wider story, because it should be there, shouldn't it? There should be, you know, the young people growing up now in Jamaica should be made aware, you know, when they go to school and, you know, and study music, do they study roots reggae?
Can I say something? Right. My nature, I'm a functionalist, right? My thing is, does it work? That's it. That's the way my brain is wired. So what I'm saying is this: if 20 reggae artists come up to me now, or 20 country artists come up to me now, or 20 rock bands come up to me now, and there was one rock band that came to me, and they said, Derek, we want to be like you too. And I said, really? I said, show me your demo. Right? They played me their demo. I said, that doesn't sound like you two. I said, this is what we want to do. They came back to me over a 2-year period. In this part of England, they outsold you two. The guy who run the record shop gave them some figures and whatever. Right, now listen to what I'm saying here,
yeah.
Right? So they wanted to go through a process where they knew how they was going to produce a result. And all I'm saying is this, is that if the new artists want to produce a result and want to give back to the heritage that is owned, they have to get with today's way of doing things. So I hear what you're saying, and like, look, the records I have in my collection are all the back in the day stuff. If I am buying something, going, I haven't got that one, I heard that. But what I'm saying is that doesn't answer the question of where's the future of reggae in Jamaica.
Well, listen, this is all a part of it, because if you go to the average teenager in Jamaica, they would have heard the name Beethoven, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Or Mozart.
Right.
But would have heard the name Prince Allah.
But that's the Jamaican education system. That's nothing to do with... What I'm saying is, that it's who's teaching.
But,
That's who's teaching. The point is, someone set up a syllabus.
But we're talking about the future of roots reggae music. So if they haven't got the knowledge of the original roots reggae singers.
We just had a little break. We're back again, and we're just going to talk about some... Right, okay. The problem that I have with artists, singers, bands, is that they're not that focused or not that clear about what it is that they want to do, or even how they're going to get there. So if you see people on TV, if you see bands and artists singing, then you equate someone on television as being successful. I want to make Will Smith and Jazzy Jeff. So this was Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. They won a Grammy in the late 80s. And Jazzy Jeff talks this story, and you can actually see him say this on YouTube. He said, he goes, we did the Grammys, we won the award. He goes, I went off of the stage. He goes, we were on stage, all happy. He goes, I went off of the stage and I cried. And he said he cried because the money that they had in the bank, I think he said he only had $500 in the bank. The money that he had in the bank and the award that they won, there was a discrepancy between the two. He goes, all of his friends thought he was large. But what it is that all of the investment to make the album and to make the album successful hadn't been recouped yet. So the record company was making in a bit of money, but they weren't getting paid, right?
I think that's what it ended up doing. The Fresh Prince of
TV
recuperates the money, wasn't it?
Yeah, because he's getting paid from a different pot. So the music industry pot will pay you one way, the film industry pot will pay you another way, and we can go on. The play and the licensing rights will pay you another way. And so what it is that a band or an artist, when they're sitting down, has to look and say, okay, how's my music going to make me money? One way is if you're selling plastic. That's if this happens to be it. But there are all of the other ways that you have as revenue streams. So if we're going to be crude, so that we can pull away from the Jamaican industry, to use another example, if you've got a manager who knows how to get you in films, and the manager can get you some tour dates, and he can get you, just recently in England, Solange Knowles has been reading some stories. So she's been paid a whole bunch of money to be a reader, right? Okay, of somebody's script for these radio broadcasts. The issue is an artist should be looking at all of the ways in which they can make money because of the digital age. Now, if the only thing you know how to do is ride a horse and cart, then that horse and cart is going to go at 4 or 5 miles an hour, and that horse and cart can only go, and that's if he's gone on a gallop, right? But now, if you need to go from A to B in a combustion engine based vehicle, you need an engineer. It's a different skill. They're both travel and transportation, but they're not. And what you've got is people who are trying a thing, and what they're doing isn't working. But what it is and to say that was said during the break, you've got managers who have had big power in the old way of doing things. But now that it's a new way, you have to concede that you don't know as much and maybe bring somebody in. And so what I was saying about the Jamaican artists is the way that the Jamaican artists can win in this new world of reggae, with an understanding that look at the amount of festivals that are taking place in England and Europe, right? The way that artists, and I do need to cut to these big artists with 50, 60, 70, 80 million fans. The thing that we was talking about with country and western earlier on, where you've got country artists from Nashville who were famous in the West Indies. They didn't tour there, but they were famous. Now imagine if today a country artist could be famous in the Caribbean. I'm just using that as an example. I'm not saying that you can rewind time, right? And that Nashville artist could then tour all of those West Indian islands. They would be making as much money as if they was touring in America, but their presence in the Caribbean would be more important. Because again, look at our parents' generation, who loved a lot of that country and western stuff. They would be going to all of those football stadiums that they have in the Caribbean to watch those artists. Now, in Whitman's day and whoever else's day, touring the West Indies wasn't a priority, wasn't whatever. Today, for a young country artist, it would be great. Okay? But what you have, so what you now have is, and today you could still get country artists to tour the Caribbean. That, I believe, is quite easy to do. It's not something that I have looked at, but it is doable. But in like manner, you have got Jamaican artists who are known, and Coxon brought this up, who are now doing work recording in Europe. They're not recording in Jamaica, but they are recording because the euro is the currency that people are willing to pay to make it happen, right? So
plus there's just much more interest. You know, I know that Jamaica has its Rebel Salute.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it still has a Sunsplash, but it has Rebel Salute every year.
Yeah.
But that's the major festival, isn't it? There
Yeah.
might be some small ones in it.
Yeah.
But you look at Europe, there's a whole heap of, you know, and this is where the Jamaican artists perform each summer.
Yeah.
You know, Germany, Holland, France, Belgium. There's just more for roots music.
Yes.
There is still a market for them. You know,
Right.
they can come and perform here and make some money.
Yeah. I'm going to say two things.
So
Go on, say what you're saying.
So that's why, you know, when Clarkson said it in Europe, you know, that kind of it's happening, and there's a base, isn't there? Because there's a strong root sound system culture.
Yes.
You know, because with the Jamaican sounds, they will mix it up, whereas here, you know, in Europe, there's still a strong root system.
Yes.
You know, like wherever you go, whether it's I think it's Blackboard Jungle in France, there's King Shiloh in Holland, there's a whole heap here in the UK.
Yeah.
There's still that kind of foundation.
Yes.
So there's always going to be that kind of market for them guys to go and make some money in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a shame that it's not there in Jamaica. It's a shame that it has to be in Europe, and there's a certain market for them in America as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
Because I know that people like Earl Chinner Smith and them guys perform a lot in California.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a certain amount of market for them in America, but in Jamaica it's just. And I think, as I said it in the first part of this session, that he's just decrying that is happening. That there isn't the kind of the infrastructure anymore in Jamaica.
Yeah. I do want to make a statement about the race issue, but from a completely different tangent.
Okay.
Is this? You've heard me speak about country. You heard me speak about rock.
Yeah.
The service that I'm involved with is going to be working with country artists, rock artists. I don't care what genre you are. But the point is this: that people might be turning around saying, "Who's that black guy coming doing rock? Who's that black guy coming doing country?" Right? And that's the same outsider statement that's been made about David Rodigan, right? What is going to allow me to do what I'm doing is that I can do stuff that other people can't.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So it's not kind of. This is a kind of, and this is something that they need to be made aware of. You know, kind of what you're offering, the knowledge that you're offering. This is the kind of thing really that music unions should fund. They should fund courses like this.
They should.
So their members aren't ripped off.
Right. Here's why the musician. Right. Okay. So that people understand what's going on here, we've got a course that is being put on in Oxford. It's being paid for by one of the colleges. Okay, and the details for this course are here. This is the brochure, but you'll be able to download it on your website.
Yeah.
Okay. So the same people that are paying you to teach the history is the same people that's paying me to do this, right? Okay. And so I'm doing this as a kind of like community involvement thing. So if you live in Oxford, you can get it for free. Literally, they're not paying any money because I'm being paid to teach, right? If, however, you live out of Oxford, then because I'm also going to be based at the academy as well. And so what I'm doing is
Oxford Academy.
Oxford Academy,
Good.
right? So
Good.
what's now happening is that I'm going to be able to do evening, weekends, and summer programs for people outside of Oxford, which means anywhere across England and anywhere around the world. And that's the way that it's going to be marketed. And the idea is because, you know, I have seen record labels just go the way of the dodo. And what it is this, and I mean this, right? If you have a union, of which there are different types of music unions, and the music union makes what I do available, there's a problem. Anybody can join a union, right? You just pay your subscriptions, you're now a member. But joining a union does not make you talented. You just join a union, right? So the problem with that model of offering a course or a service is that the union will only make the service available to union members. So look at the amount of musicians that aren't union members. There's loads. True. So what I'm doing is I'm making it available through the Oxford platform, And by making it available free to anybody that's in Oxford, and I also do this industry escort thing where if you want to meet people in the music business, who are the people, we can help you meet them. But what that doesn't do is that doesn't give you the ability to get a record deal. It just means you can meet people. And the idea is, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get people to meet people in the industry within a 4 to 6 week period, right? Now that's fast. But you still have to be responsible for doing the things that are going to make your fan base grow, and so on. And so that's why I've got one girl, young girl, she's 18, she's involved with charities and so on. What she's doing is just like, you know, and I'm not helping her in the sense of she's already doing her thing. I'm assisting her in doing what she's doing. So, because if I say I'm helping, it makes it sound like I'm running it. No, she's already doing what she's doing. I saw that and goes, okay, so I'm helping her out, right? And there's one of her friends is this young singer guy who's got 80,000 people on his social media. I'm going to be getting him to do some teaching as well. Because you have to bring to the record labels the very commodity that they want to sign. They don't want to sign music, they want to sign people that got a fan base.
So this course you're offering, has this been circulated amongst the youth projects?
No, it's not a youth project. No.
Oh, it's strictly for adults.
It's for adults.
It's a shame there wasn't one for...
No. The reason why it's for adults is because you can only sign a record contract when you're 18.
But I'm just saying for those who
look, I don't do youth projects. Okay. I don't do youth
No.
projects.
No. I was saying because there's those that are kind of 16, 17 who are coming...
Right. From a let's get this right. From a legal point of view, you cannot sign a recording contract until you're 18 because you're now legally an adult. So the courses are going to be made for people that are legal adults.
Okay. So as soon as they're 18, they can step in.
They can turn up, right? You have to be a legal adult, okay? And
because the younger they're made aware of what they need to know,
they can be made aware of it. But in terms of me, because part of what I'm doing with the course is this: I am going to be introducing people into people that are already in the industry, right? So the very basis upon which this adult who is in the industry, who might be running a management company or whatever, is engaging with you, is that you are going to be a potential sign. Does that make sense?
No, for sure.
So if you're a potential sign, who he should be looking at, because you're doing your social media stuff and you know, you're doing all the things necessary to become a recording artist, the only time that he has got to spend is on those people that he thinks are going to be good investments. You're not a good investment if you're 15. Because you can't sign a contract. You're not a recording artist. Do you know what I mean? From the legal side, legal point of view, you're not old enough. So I deal with adults, and the idea is to be working with adults across the world. Where we have got at the academy, there's theatre space. If you want to do like your small play productions, there is TV space if we're going to be filming you to do your interviews and so on. But there are the tutorial rooms where if you want to be involved with learning how to do like all of the online stuff, where you're building fan bases. Like, so project one is how do you get to 1,000 people? How do you get to 2,000 people? So they get the concept. I've just held on the 25th of March 2017, so that's just about 4 weeks ago, I held Oxford's first virtual reality conference. So that's me put together, gave out a load of free invitations and so on. Out of that, I have met a Fortune 500 company that wants me to do something with them in 2 weeks' time. But the point is, it's the Fortune 500 companies that give you the endorsement and when you look at a film and you see them driving a car, and then you see the Ford badge or the BM badge, you know, James Bond, he's, you know, Aston Martins and whatever it is. The companies pay for the Ford logo to be in the film. It's called placement advertising. So the point is that the way in which an artist should be carrying themselves is with an understanding that these are all of the revenue streams, from placement advertising to this, to that, so on. And then what now starts happening is you're shaping everything that you're doing based on you knowing where all of the money pots are. Because if you're walking into it blind, you're just going to hit everything and get nothing. Sure. Right. So you've got all of these people say, yeah, I'm an artist, I'm ready. And they're not. What they are is they're ambitious, but they're arrogant. They don't want to be taught. And I'm not telling people you shouldn't, but there are some images that don't work. So people say, yeah, man, I'm into hip hop and I'm hard. Not if you. I remember I went to New York It was a bit of a talent scout mission, and whatever. But there were some people that I saw who were on MTV, but they were no longer having an MTV-based career because the bottom had fallen out of what they were doing, and they were on a kind of like, I'd call it a piecemeal deal, similar in nature to like a lot of the Jamaican artists. And the point is this, is that you have to, you can't win chess if you don't know the rules. You know that there's a black and white board, you know that's a king and a queen, and but how to move it all strategically, you're clueless. And what it is that the music industry has moved from drafts, which is quite easy, you can learn drafts in 10 seconds, to chess. Same board, the rules are like, that's all it is. And again, there's some people that have got the mind for it. So, do you see what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure. Because I wouldn't have the kind of, I haven't got the inclination to get myself involved in that aspect of things. I just want to create.
Yeah.
And I prefer to leave the rest of it up to someone else to deal with.
But again, but for me, and I mean this, right, I can shoot videos, I can do animation. I don't play the guitar that well, but I can strum a couple of chords, right? Because the dedication to become a Hendrix is just not the way I'm built at the moment. I dabble, but I'm not gonna, but all of the stuff to do with scripts and so on, I can show people. So I say, listen, look at this film show, and what we'll do is we'll do it. No, we won't do it. They'll go online. They'll see that there. But I said, look at that film show, and they said, what do you think? They said, yeah, it's good. I said, I wrote it, and they'll look and go, what? Do you see what I mean? So what I'm saying is this: is that now, so I don't have to talk about being creative and being a management person who talks about appreciating creative. I know that there are some ideas you can't squeeze blood out of a stone. You have the initial kernel of the idea today. You come back to it in 3 months' time, and then because your brain's had long enough to kind of ruminate. So the kind of way in which you work with creatives, there are some people, the bean counters, who don't know how to work with creative people. I can tell someone, look, don't worry about, I'm not trying to get you to stress over whether or not this idea is going to work. Just leave it, because I understand the process. People see, I've got this thing where I've got my talking skeletons that take the mick out of everybody who is, I believe, stupid, right? In terms of, I'm in the music industry, but all these skeletons are all dead, right? They don't know what they're doing. I've got a robot. There's a series of robots that I'm building because I'm putting together a sci-fi thing. But the idea is, so that I avoid the copyright problems of, I designed the robot. I'm designing the robot myself, and the stuff looks good. I've got like 5 of them that are going to be put together.
So you can take a patent out on that?
Yes.
Yeah? Very good.
So I had this one guy, he thought he was being smart, but he was being snide.
Yeah.
And this is what I mean. So I'd written my book about the industry, and this is where it's going, and this is what you need to do. And this guy who was a so-called journalist, and I mean it like that, so-called, he asked me, who's it published by? Now I knew what he was trying to do. What he was saying was, if it's Simon and Schuster, I'll give you respect. If it's not Simon and Schuster, then I'm not. So I said, I'm not sure who it's by. Now it's published by me. The reason why it's published by me is because I want to own my own copyrights. 2, the book is not designed to be there for everybody. The book is only for industry people. But the purpose of the book is to say, look, $1 trillion a year is rewiring the world. The way you're doing things are never going to work. You need to tool up and be this way, or get people involved who are this way. That's kind of like the synopsis of the book. I've got 4 more that I'm going to look to write. They might not be written next week, but the conditions for those books to be written isn't here. Like I've got one called Black Image Inc. The artwork, they'll see that on the screen. But that's about what's going to happen to Black Hollywood when Black Hollywood en masse, there's loads of them, that can get in contact with like 1 million people, 20 million, 60 million. And, you've got people like Will Smith who already got 70-something plus million fans online. But the moment that you've got actors like that are able to now get in contact with like these big billion numbers that are turning up, they don't have to worry about Oscars so white, because it's like, we can do it and we don't need your recognition. But by the same token, there are a lot of females, women, who over the age of 40 don't get roles because they're considered to be too old. So if they can get in direct contact with their fans, they don't need to say to the casting directors, why don't you get me the roles, because they're getting the roles themselves. You've got female directors. I think over the last couple of years, less than 20% of the movies made were with female directors. They just don't get the look in. So that's another industry discrimination. But if a female director can get in...
And that's one aspect we never really think about, do we?
But so do you know what I mean? So everybody's got their problems. The blacks got their problems. The women over 40 have got their problems. The female directors got their problems. Everybody's got an issue, right, about why life ain't so good. But as more of these people start using these systems where they can get in contact with... Like, I'm sorry, I need to cut the... Muhammad Ali made a statement and he said, he goes, 2 billion people will watch the fight. That's casting directors. 10 times the population of America. The directors. 10 times the population. And I brought in that crowd. It's me, not anybody else. They just don't get the look. So that's and I'm paraphrasing. That's kind of like the words that he said in this thing. I will tailor off this section with the Muhammad Ali quote. But he was saying that because of him, he was able to bring in 2 billion people to watch the Rumble in the Jungle. It was his celebrity status that brought in the 2 billion people to look at the Rumble in the Jungle. Sure. And he was saying that his audience was based out from people around the globe, not America. So anybody who is black, and because I mean I could talk about women, you know, but we're talking about black people, and we're specifically talking about reggae. But anybody who's black, if they think like Muhammad Ali and they understand that the majority of the world is outside of America, or more correctly, the majority of the world is outside Jamaica because we're talking about reggae, then the issue isn't what your country's doing for you. The issue is what are you doing for yourself with these new technologies that are going to give us the potential for anybody to stand in the shoes of an Ali, where he said, I brought 2 billion people to watch what I was doing. Now, I mean, he's an exceptional person. You know, he didn't have 2 billion admirers.
I mean, it's the same way why people go, a lot of people go to Jamaica, because of that connection with roots reggae.
But what I'm saying is, we have to hone it down to the individual. The individual. It's what is the individual doing?
Well, I mean, it's a shame that now that the individual has to learn to get a piece of that.
That's exactly what it is. And you just said it right. They have to learn. And I'm going to say something about what you do with regards to the the black journalism. Although we don't teach the same subject and we've got different specialities, what you will notice from all of the black journalists of the past who made all of those monumental strides in setting up all of the various black newspapers, black protest organisations and so on, is that they understood that they had to do it themselves.
For sure.
And become the centre for what was then going to ripple out across where they wanted to make an influence.
Definitely.
And so each artist...
And the classic example is, in the First World War, there's only one black accredited journalist. As the Second World War was approaching, the black press just started this massive campaign to get enough, and in the end there was 30 odd when across and reported on the various theatres of war.
Right. Okay.
You know, doing it themselves.
There you go.
It's not going to happen otherwise.
So if an artist understands black history within that context of you have to do it yourself, then that model of you have to do it, but what you'll see is that each of those journalists was a very specific. They were built a certain way. All of those people that founded those newspapers, they were built a certain way. So if you have artists that turn up who learn how to become a certain way because they understand the models, then one, in terms of black history and black journalism, what they're doing doesn't seem foreign. But what it is that it's just taking a new format, which is for their music. It's a new format and they're using the online tools, right? Now, if you're promoting whatever, as I said, with, and I'll play the quote at the end of this with Muhammad Ali. But a number of those black journalists who you speak about and teach about, they intended to hit the population. They weren't trying a thing. They intended that what they were written was going to work. The campaigns that they did to bring their newspapers to the masses, the events that they organised, and the people that they affiliated with or sponsored, right? In terms of a Black History thing, for reggae artists who speak about peace, love, justice, and all of that kind of stuff, this should be right up their street. But what it is, you can't be a theorist, going back to Zion and whatever. If you're talking production plan and you're talking Garvey stuff,
you have to be doing something.
Exactly. It's not the theory
This is the time that action made, isn't it?
There
really?
you go. Do you see what I mean?
No, for sure.
And I know that when Bob Marley set up Tough Gong, the idea was so that he could take the residuals from owning his own rights.
Well, that's what a lot of the guys done. I mean, as I say, bitten once, twice shy, isn't it?
Yes.
So a lot of the guys end up forming their own, like Greg Risett's formed African Museum, and they all tended to form their own labels, didn't they? And set up their own. Their own thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So the thing is that in today's world, because I think setting up a newspaper or like what you do in a magazine, I think it's hard work. In the sense of it's hard work because it's not your thing. So doing something you don't want to do is always hard work. Mm-hmm. But if you are now shaping what you're doing around your business, which is music, then it shouldn't be hard work. But what I would say is this, just before you say this, is that it's not going to work if you're trying to, and I know one guy who's a so-called rapper, I'm going to say this, and the guy's as thick as two short planks, if to use an English colloquialism. He thinks he's something he's not. So this isn't I'll make it better and it'll work. You have to have what it is for it to happen, as opposed to you're trying to make something happen and you don't have that magic. Elvis is going to become big anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so in like manner, what I'm saying is that if you have got what it takes, it will work. Don't want to scare anybody off and say, it's hard work and whatever. I believe that there are mechanisms that you can teach people. And what will happen is those who get it will go bam, the light will switch on. And I said, like, there's this young guy, he's got 80,000 fans from Oxford. He didn't get those 80,000 fans accidentally. You give any artist the ability to start getting in contact with and managing 80,000 fans, and you're now earning money. In fact, I want to get him to be teaching major labels, right? Because he's got 80,000. So if he can say, look, this is what we're doing with 80,000 people, one, they'll listen to him because he's done what the staff in the label can't do, right? And you can say, listen, he is our stage one. Now, if you want stage two, we can do this. I can say, look, if you now want like 10 million, we can do this. And now what a record label can do is they can budget how your method of developing what they're having is going to work. So you can teach people, you can give them the outline, you can give them some homework to do. They start operating on the principles. They can go in the way of, they know, okay, 80,000, this is how it works. Again, A&R, your A&R in yourself. And the reason why I want to do mass teachings is because a record label will choose somebody and say, we think you're going to make it happen. Whereas my thing is, give it to as many people as possible, and out of that, the ones that will make it happen are the ones that you then escort to the higher levels, right? So it's better to, and that way you're actually managing a process, right? And the ones that know how to make it work, they can then, if you're from Nashville, you can take it back to Nashville and you can earn money teaching what is being taught here. We're going. Do you see?
No, for sure.
So we just become now the control. It's kind of like McDonald's, we're the head, and you go and do what you're going to do wherever you're going to do. And as you get bigger, you can take those results back to the record company and say, right, we now want to invest in you. So this is all controllable. It doesn't matter what genre of music you're in. It just does.
So basically, through your course, you're offering a template of how someone can maneuver and surmount all the kind of obstacles and learn the stuff they need to know, the more technical side of things, the more how can I explain the things that a creative person wouldn't normally associate themselves with, so things that are normally a business manager up to, but it makes sense for them to be aware of it themselves.
It can't happen any other way. I think, in terms of to bring this session to a close, and like when I spoke about one of the last things I spoke about, and I spoke about it a bit in the break, was this, is that I set up this virtual reality conference, did the conference. I knew that out of the conference there would be people that would turn up and would want to be interested in something. So we've got, there's a guy that I've got to get back to who, those people that do film industry projects. And he said, Derek, you need to meet these people. Bam, great. There is, so like this Fortune 500 company that I'm doing some stuff with. And what the Fortune 500 company means is this. I said, with all of those television shows where you see people driving the cars are sponsored to be in the TV show. So when you see James Bond driving the Aston Martin is paying, or the BMW is paying to be the James Bond car of that particular film, because they understand that James Bond will be seen by so many million people around the world, right? People are going to keep it on their shelf. It's going to be re-released, repeated review on Netflix and all of that kind of stuff. So James Bond as a platform to advertise is great. Now, if you're putting together the deals where you are saying, if this person gets 1 million views, then you'll give them so much money, and then what a record company's looking at and saying, wow, they figured out a way how they can make money. Like Prince said, get rid of the European licensing rights. I'll have those back. You keep America, because that's doing fine. Then he comes to England, does 21 days at the O2 by giving away 2 million albums with a newspaper, right? So the newspaper is his promotion platform, but that only works because it's Prince. So if you're an unknown artist, it's not going to run. But what I'm saying is that you could do what you can do for your level, and then you can then build up. So at Prince's level, he's doing it this way. But if you're lower down the totem pole, you have another starting point. The guy who's already got 80,000 followers, I've got a game plan for him, but it's based on him having 80,000 already. Right? Does that make sense? So you can't say to somebody who's only got 350 followers, which basically means your cousins, people who live local to you, and your dog, right? You can't say to them, yeah, we're going to do this, because you haven't built it up yet. And the great thing is that you can only get followers in relation to how good you are, right? They've got a term for it. It's called the long tail. Basically, 5 fans because you deserve 5 fans, 1 million fans because you deserve 1 million fans, 50 million fans because do you see what I mean? Right? Yeah. So what you're doing is you're building people through the long tail process. Doesn't mean to say that it's going to be slow, but what it is there is a process. Now, if you're doing that I don't work with other managers, because what you're asking me to do is do what you are not skilled to do yourself. So if I give it direct to the artist now has to make a decision about who is their manager, because here's the real issue. This is why I said that there are problems in the music industry where people don't want to admit where they are. When you sign a recording contract, a record label is promising that it will do X, Y, Z for you. If they don't do X, Y, Z for you, it's a divorce. When you sign a management contract, a manager is signing a contract where he is saying, I will get you a record deal with a company that can do X, Y, Z. So if there are problems in the record industry, and the record label doesn't have the staff who know how to build fan bases, then the manager's not going to get what he wants, because the record company can't do its job, right? If the manager comes to me and says, would I do this for him, and he wants to give me a flat fee, that doesn't make any sense, because we're now talking about Wolverine and Harry Potter, Stanley versus J.K. Rowling. A manager comes to me and says, would I do X, Y, Z for him, so that he can earn the money that J.K. Rowling is going to earn, but you want to give me 50p for doing it? That doesn't make any sense. So I'll do what I do, and we take that direct to the record label. The record label will give me a percentage for what I do, but I want the record label to do all of the work, and I will take it to an established manager, the type of management company that can sell out stadiums, because you've now done what you do to qualify to be on their radar. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what I do is focus. And there was, you have people that say, well, how much could I? No. Because Stanley signed a work for hire agreement where his earnings were capped. And so it doesn't matter how much money Fantastic Four, X-Men,
Green Hornet.
Any of those that he's done. It doesn't matter how much money those things make. He is not getting a penny more because he was paid for those 40 years ago, and he's not got a royalty contract. So you don't expect me to do this. I'm just talking about Jamaican artists not signing those type of deals, and I'm going to sign one myself. That's not even logical.
I mean, and he'd be a billionaire now, wouldn't he?
Do you see what I mean? He would have been a billionaire how many times over? So the point that I'm actually making here is that you have people who don't want to admit that they can't do what they're doing, and what they do is they're signing people on what are called gamble contracts, in that they're signing the rights, they're signing the position, they're signing into the royalties, but they're hoping that you're going to make it. This new way of doing things is, you can see how many bricks we're building. You know, this is what we're getting paid to build the skyscraper so that we can get all these people to live in it. It's a different way of doing things. And if you're paying someone to build a skyscraper, you can see how well the progress is. You can actually monitor it. So the problem that you have with the old contracts in music is that they're gamble contracts, that someone will sign you, make a bunch of promises, but the promises are based on the ability of the record label to deliver. Now, Prince thought of the idea for the O2 himself. It wasn't a management company, but Prince had to break the ties with the record label in Europe so that he could do what he did in London to make a killing, multiple millions in 21 days at the O2 Arena. The O2 Arena. So that's why an artist has to understand how to play chess, not drafts. Drafts, anybody can. You can teach people drafts in 10 minutes. Chess is a lot, and then you've got the people who can think 10 moves ahead, and they're the world champions. They don't see the chessboard in the same way that everybody else does. And so now that the music industry is more like the chess game, if someone comes to me and says, Derek, we want to record an album, we want to sell it in so many territories, we want our video cost to be reduced by X, and we want to be on a virtual reality platform where we can get people to do X, Y, Z, A, B, C. What do you think? Give me a couple of days and I'll see if it's possible. If I go, yes. But you can't do that to someone who just makes videos, or someone who's been on a video course for a week. You can go on a video course for a week and learn how to handle a basic video camera, but that's not the same as being a director of photography. They're different skills. They're nowhere close, right? I am not a director of photography. I would hire in a director of photography. But if you want someone to come up with, say, like a VR concept that is going to work, that's going to freak them out, of which we're doing a few of those, well, more than a few, right? That's a different skill altogether. And you don't do that for free. You do that for a residual. You do that for a percentage. Because otherwise, what you do is you're making something where somebody else, you've made the idea and somebody else is going to make all of the money, right?
They can't run.
No, and that doesn't work. So I'm living by the same principles that I'm teaching, but at the same time, they're the only principles that are going to work, because otherwise you end up like the Jamaican music industry, where nobody's earning residuals, and because they're not earning residuals, they can't do anything, right? You want to be earning money from this project and that project while you're thinking of the other project, not scrapping for the next project because you need it to pay the bills. Everybody needs to put themselves in the J.K. Rowling position. Now, we're not saying that your idea is going to make you J.K. Rowling billions. Harry Potter, that's what it's done. But you need to put yourself in the position so you've got the potential. Because it's the potential that your business career is always developing from. Because with that potential, Project 1 is paying you while you're working on Project 2. Then Project 2 is now bringing in money, so you can then work on Project 3. And if you need to go away for a couple of years before you think of the next project, you're not always working like a hamster on a wheel. As an artist, you don't want to be working like a hamster on a wheel. So everything that you do from day one is to set yourself up to be in a position where you're earning residuals and you're more going in the direction of J.K. Rowling, not Stan Lee. He made a watch, but he's not, But with that, we can bring this to a close. I know you want to big up somebody now.
No, I want to say something about the Morgan Heritage concert.
Go on.
I didn't go to the concert that they done in Astoria.
Okay.
But for me, it's a beautiful introduction to what's a magical concert, because they came on and started just with voice and drum, just bingy.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful, really is. And I've looked on YouTube at other concerts they've done, Rotterdam and here and there, and they've never done it again.
Right.
I hope that they'll bless us with it in Oxford. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we got to wait until the 4th of May.
Yeah.
It's the 4th of May, April, May. Yeah, 4th of May for that. And Morgan Heritage in Oxford, so don't miss it. And as said before, the Dub magazine, so get that. Morgan Heritage is advertised on the back, so there'll be a review of the show, I would imagine.
Yep,
yeah, so there'll be a review of the show.
Definitely.
And
the next issue will be online at the weekend, and hard copies available sometime early part of May.
Okay, that's great. And what I'd say is this is the subject of the music industry and its direness has been spoken about without really mentioning David Rodigan and Coxon too much. We know there was an issue, but by going over the issues that Coxon spoke about with regards to the demise of the Jamaican reggae industry and me speaking about what I'm speaking about, it brings
the issues out, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And people can start to deal with it and
Yeah.
kind of. So there's always, or it's good to look for a consolation when there's been a certain kind of
there is
issue.
Yeah.
So, and I think that is something that people can start to look at. And,
Yeah.
and all the people who love reggae,
If you know someone who's a reggae artist, go to the Dub magazine download page, look for this brochure. There are phone numbers and so on. If you live outside of Oxford, if you live outside of England, there will be accommodations for you coming to this, and there'll be a link about the programme where you can actually look at a video where I'm speaking about the programme in a bit more depth. Because the bottom line is this: the music industry, it doesn't matter what part of the industry you have an interest in. We're obviously speaking about reggae. I happen to like all kinds of music, but the point is this, is that the business of music has changed for everybody. And with those changes, there are a new set of rules. You've heard us speak about a lot of the issues with regards to managers that don't want to move with the times, labels that haven't got the money to move with the times. And you've also heard me speak about this one guy who I'm going to be looking to get as a teacher, who as a beginning artist has already got 80,000 people following him. We've got a project that we're working on that we intend to get in front of America's 38 million blacks. So you can follow us and you can see how that's working. It's just knowing how to work in this new environment. That's really what it is, and coming up with the ideas that can work in this new environment. And as you heard us speak about, MTV is 35 years old. It's declining in viewership, 20% music videos. So the model of MTV is not what we're looking at here. The model is the Line Entertainment Industry Awards, where they're actually awarding people for working with the new technologies that get them in contact with people on smartphones, on tablets. It's a different way of doing things. So with that, we'll bring this session to a close. Keep in contact with us on social media. And we don't want to, I'm not going to answer anything about David Rodigan and Coxon, because David Rodigan's drawn a line under that. So if he's drawn a line under it, then there's no point in us going about it, because I said tomorrow they might be best friends, and you're now saying things about an argument that's come and done, and they've already patched up their differences. So I'm not getting involved. And I said I know Rodigan, so we're not getting involved with any of that either. So with that, that is Natty Mark, producer of Dub Magazine, and Derek James, Rewind Group. Thank you for your time, your interest.
Legendary filmmaker.
Anyway, see you guys soon.
Yeah, man.
That was good.
It's gonna be some fight. The greatest fight, the greatest event of all times. When I get to Kinshasa, Zion, Africa, 2 billion people will watch the fight, and that's 10 times the population of America. That's like a country 10 times bigger than America. 2 billion people, I found out, will fill, to give you an idea how many people it is, 2 billion people will fill an arena of 100,000 seats every night with new faces for 170 years.
That's a great
100,000 people every night, new faces for 170 years. And I drove that crowd, not George Foreman. It's my beautiful looks. It's my skill.